Gamers, I'm fucking sick.
And now I'm fine. Isn't it funny how the second I promise to upload more often I get hit by a cold? Could it be the 5G towers zapping me, censoring my opinions? Probably not, but today we're reviewing the new Jacob Collier album. It's called Djessie Part 3. So let's do it! Jacob Collier. I don't say this lightly whatsoever, but he is quite possibly one of the most talented musicians on the planet. On top of being a guitar and bass wizard, on top of being one of the greatest piano players on the planet, on top of being able to pull off incredibly technically complex rhythms on the drums, on top of being a masterful arranger, on top of being a great singer, on top of having one of the best ears in music, able to break down major thirds in increasing number of voicings? He is, on top of being able to tap 21 to 22 polyrhythms. Seriously, if you're ever in a game of musical dodgeball, make sure you pick this guy first. But being a good musician and making good music are not necessarily the same thing. An artist like Thundercat, while he has made some pretty fantastic music in his time, is amazing at his instrument, I don't think anybody would deny that, but occasionally falls a little short, given that a lot of his things kind of sound more like beats than fully fledged songs. And because of that, I didn't really enjoy his last album. And so while being good at your instrument obviously gives you an advantage, it allows you to have really cool fills and passages and keep me interested, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the music itself is going to be great, and that's what I'm here to talk about. And so we'll start by talking about his history. Jacob Collier is, technically speaking, a YouTube musician. This is where he got his start. He was actually making those a cappella, like, multi-face videos that used to be really, really common at the time. But it was clear right from the start that there's something different about this guy. His harmonies weren't just, oh, we're just gonna do triads up and down. No, they were rich and complex. He was clearly already familiar with jazz harmony and the cutting edge of unique extensions and voicings, and this was even before he got into microtonal stuff. For those that don't know, microtonal music is when you take a note and another note next to each other, but you play the note in between. Here's a clip of him modulating to G half sharp major. And the more videos you watch of this guy, just the more you learn that he's also a multi-instrumentalist who is better than me at everything. Although I'm like 90% sure he doesn't play sax, so that's like one thing I have over him. And with all this talent, he eventually made his first album, In My Room, recorded where you think it was. And while a lot of the music on there was fantastic, it's Jacob Collier, I didn't really enjoy it that much. It felt a little half-baked, to say the least. As a debut, it was pretty good at displaying his skills. He won Grammys for it, after all. But a lot of the songs didn't feel fully formed. They felt like his experimentation and ideas were all out there, but not put into a cohesive piece. It's more of an EP than an album, in my opinion. Just to demonstrate this, one of the songs on the tracklist was a cover of the Flintstones opening. I can be pretty safe in saying this was more of an experiment in him showing off his abilities rather than making an art piece in and of itself. But it still made a splash, and it got him quite a few collaborators, such as the Metropole Orchestra. And with this powerful ally in hand, he went headfirst into his second album, his sophomore record, Djessie, Part 1. And what the hell do you even say about this album? It's a constant, symphonic explosion of sounds. There are times on this album where he's combining a cappella style beatboxing sounds with Brazilian layered percussion on top of orchestral strings and slap bass guitar. It's just so many layers of more and more stuff that just keeps piling on. Like, have you ever been on a holiday or a cruise ship where you see Americans eating food, where instead of just being like, okay, bread, filling, sandwich, that's my lunch, they're like, bread, filling, an entire chocolate cake, 20 pancakes, a salad, curry, chocolate, and that's my sandwich. Very weird analogies aside, my point is that it was just such a massive culmination of tons of different elements that you kind of can't help but love it. And believe it or not, for the most part, he manages to achieve this without it feeling bloated or overblown. The mixing quality on this album is superb. But that doesn't mean I absolutely loved everything about it. You see, it kind of suffers from the problem that most of the songwriting, not the playing or arranging, but the writing, the way he structures it from beginning to end, was pretty flawed in a lot of cases. All the Love in My Heart was amazingly rhythmically complex, it had a cool breakdown in it, and it was structured quite well. Also, his cover of a pre-existing song, All Night Long was perfect, I loved it, but with some of the other tracks they felt a little bit directionless, and like he was just kind of using these sounds to make things rather than truly expressing himself with one cohesive package of a song. But having learned from this, he goes into Djessie Part 2, a much more quiet and folky and spacious album. There are a lot more tracks with only 2 or 3 layers of vocal harmony rather than the thousands he's known for. There's an amazing cover of Here Comes the Sun, and Moon River, which is just an a cappella choir, is beautiful. I have to say that something was lost without the orchestral grandness that he had before. Not to say that there weren't tracks that didn't use layering like this, just that overall it wasn't as present. You know, in a way I don't really miss it, because what he gave us instead was fantastic. Emotional guitars, dreamy pianos, it kind of had it all. And it explored a new side to Jacob Collier, a folky, sensual, slow side. And while I enjoyed all 3 of these albums so far, none of them really had the punch I was expecting. In that all of them had great moments, but none of them came together in ways I wanted them to. To be honest, I find Jacob Collier at his best when he's following a more simplistic, poppy structure and then doing all his crazy stuff on top of that, which is why I was very excited when Djessie Part 3 was announced. Its singles were In My Bones, All I Need, and Time Alone With You. All 3 of them pretty simplistically structured pop songs, exactly what I was wanting from him. Time Alone With You grooves harder than I've ever heard before. It's this constant clicking beat that goes forward with a beautiful vocal duet and these comical infinite extensions of his vocal harmony. It has me nodding my head like nothing else, and it's also just a really nice, sensual, pleasing to the ears song. And In My Bones is somewhat of a thesis statement for this album. It's him saying, you know, this music, it's just in me. It also grooves really hard, but a little bit more aggressively. There are these side passages with these weird hand percussion or whatever it is he's doing. And these unique little side passages where the music just kind of stops and he does some weird thing with his vocals and then it drops back in. Exactly the unique structuring I was wanting. And All I Need is also fantastic. It's got this one repeating piano melody with him doing this awesome slap bass guitar work where him, Mahalia, and Ty Dolla $ign just vocally riff all over it. Comes to this big climax at the end and it's extremely satisfying. And overall, the album keeps up with this. The first real track, Clarity, is pure hype. It just goes up and up and up and up, telling you, hey guys, this is the album. But it's also really, really weird, like there's a dubstep passage with a banjo solo, like... And these songs, the fast, upbeat, happy pop songs, are the ones that I enjoy most on this album. They amazingly combine everything I love about Jacob Collier. They're structured well, and they had that X factor that I feel that in a way he was lacking for a long time. I kind of see them as the perfect result and culmination of all of Jacob Collier's talents. Finally aimed in a direction that allows me to fully appreciate it. They're wonderful. However, as this album continues, we kind of get to some other tracks that I have a bit more of a problem with. The exemplar I'm going to use for this is He Won't Hold You, a track I didn't really enjoy that much. To start with, it's way slower than the rest, and not that he can't pull this off, just that I would like a little more driving force behind it. And it's just... cheesy, I guess? Not even in like a sweet, heartwarming way, just kind of a, yeah, we get it, let's just get to the next track kind of way. He won't hold you like I do, what are you, a SoundCloud rapper? And he has quite a few features on this album, and I get the sense that some people think I hate features because I keep bringing them up as a negative, but that's not true. Just that your features need to be able to bring something to the table. And on this album, he just kind of grooves with the quirky, drunk drumming setup that, let's be real, is a little overused. And cool chords and bass riffage, he just has the singer sing over the top of it. And while there's nothing wrong with this, it's perfectly pleasing to the ear, it's not something I'm going to be going back to years later, like with his previous album. It's not making me hype, it's not making me cry, it's just kind of pleasing to listen to. A perfect 5 out of 10. It suffers from what I was trying to articulate in my last Perfume Genius review that I'm going to try and restate now with the hindsight I have. Songwriting is meant to compel you. It's meant to take you from one place to another. It's meant to evolve over time and evoke emotions out of you. There is a very, very fine line you have to walk with repetition. Some albums can do this great, and they work because of that. But what I felt happened with that last Perfume Genius album, and therefore this album with the latter tracks, is that it feels like they have their one sound and they're just going to play this and then just kind of sing over it because they can. It doesn't feel like there's one thing they wanted me to hit me in the face with, hype or very calm. It's just kind of plodding along. And this can be fine if you, say, have something amazing you're bringing to the table. Mark Kozelek does this on all of his albums, and they're still great because his lyrics are layered and complex and he goes off on these interesting tangents. It's literally the setup for an entire genre, hip-hop, except they have really unique lyrics and good rhymes. But with a few of the tracks here, it just feels like it's vocal and lyrical noodling. And this happens in almost all of the latter tracks. And so you have this very, very weird dichotomy where I'm loving all the first half, but for the latter half I'm kind of questioning. And to get back onto the positives here, I would like to reiterate just how good the first half of this album is. And the latter half isn't even bad. It's overall about a 6 out of 10 if I was rating just that alone. Yes, I don't think they're amazingly written. Yes, they are a bit noodly and can get boring after a while, but they still have Jacob Collier's amazing talent behind them. They still have cool chords. They still got good rhythms. It's competently put together is what I'm trying to say. It just failed to wow me. And like I said, now we have this issue. Do I rate this album on what I liked or what I didn't like? And the answer is that overall, I feel like this album gets a light 8 to maybe a 7 out of 10. Amazingly enjoyable at parts. Seriously, you owe it to yourself to listen to the first length of this album. It's great. But in the end, wasted a little too much of my time to really give it those high scores. And the enjoyability was kind of cut short by a lot of the later tracks, noodling around and not being as satisfying as I wanted them to be. What did you think of this album? Leave a comment telling me your thoughts, and of course, please do leave a like if you enjoyed, it helps me out a lot, and subscribe if you're new here. Albums I have mixed feelings on, especially when it's this wide apart, are always difficult to review, and accurately getting across my feelings when I have these two sides I'm trying to balance can be difficult, but overall I want to make it clear that I didn't dislike this album in any point. I'm giving it a very high score, it just wasn't as high as it maybe could have been. But with that, I'll see you guys in the next one.